Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. So today I am bringing you yet another new deck to the channel that I promised towards the beginning of the season, mid/beginning, when the new pack came out. This is one of the decks that I mentioned I wanted to move into upon the release of the Dragonmaid structure deck, as that provided two much needed ultra rares for the deck you are seeing before you, which is Dragon Link. This is, I guess, specifically Adventure Dragon Link because we are playing, of course, the Adventure engine, but you know, whether you want to call it Adventure Dragon Link or not, I mean, all the same, it is good old Dragon Link here. So yeah, the Dragonmaid structure deck brought us both Red Med, which the comments actually pointed out, and I didn't even realize Red Med was in the Dragonmaid deck. Like, I seriously didn't. I thought it was just the House Dragonmaid, Shio, and the other ultra rare we're using from the Dragonmaid deck, which is the Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. But no, it turned out Red Med was just in there as well, so go figure, right? But I just happened to overlook it, so in any case, though, it is going to make a very fine addition to our collection so that we can play this deck. So yeah, after getting the Red Med and the Heavenly Spheres here, I only had to craft, I think, 3 ultra rares for this particular iteration of the deck. There are other ultra rares you could be playing in this deck. I think the most notable one that I'm missing here is Fairy Tale Snow, which I'm still like kind of on the cusp of thinking maybe I should have crafted Fairy Tale Snow, because here's the thing. Fairy Tale Snow is useful in other decks, but upon looking at the list of decks that she's played in, I didn't see any that I don't think I'm gonna be moving into in the very near future. So I decided for the time being to just hold off on Snow, and then maybe once I do decide to move into a deck that plays Snow, we can just add her to the Dragon Link deck. Like, I've often talked about this, how when I'm first trying out a new deck, I'll often just craft like the bare minimum number of ultra rares needed just to see how much I like the deck, and then if I really love it, then yeah, I'm definitely willing to go all in. I think that's one of the reasons I like saving my ultra rare craft points so much, is that I can get just a feeler for how a deck is, and then if I really decide I love the deck, I just always have the option to go all in on it if I need to. But you know, Dragon Link is still a deck that I enjoyed very much. It's a very interesting combo deck in that there aren't quite as many, like, it's kind of like Adventure Tenyi in that you have more freeform combo lines typically, but this one is even more freeform than Adventure Tenyi in that Adventure Tenyi is mostly just trying to go into Halki Fibrax and then they're good, right? Dragon Link actually has a lot of different ways it can achieve what it's trying to do, and sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming just trying to figure out what exactly is possible with the hand that you have. In that regard, I think with this deck profile a little bit more than some others, I've talked about this too with other adventure profiles, but I would definitely appreciate the feedback in the comments on not only the build here, but also the gameplay in the duels that I will be showing you after we talk a little bit about the deck here, because yeah, I'm kind of just like doing my own thing when it comes to trying to figure out how this deck plays. I'm not really following. I mean, I did look up a couple of gameplay videos, and I am like slightly following the structure of some of what they're doing, but for the most part, I am just kind of like doing my own thing and just making the plays that seem to make the most sense to me. And to be fair, I've gotten a decent bit of success with the deck doing that, but I also definitely feel that I could be playing and probably even building more optimally as well. So as always, I do appreciate that feedback from you all. So the main thing that this deck is trying to do is basically just vomit out a bunch of dragons, as the name of the deck would imply. There are a couple of dragons that you can end on that provide, and just, you know, boss monsters in general you can end on that provide powerful negate effects. Of course, Baron de Fleur is here with her ever-prevalent Omni Negate. One of the main ones that's unique to this deck is Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. This card is actually insane. Like, not every deck can make it. Obviously, the requirements of not only needing a non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro monster, but also being level 9, do make it fairly restrictive. But this card's Omni Negate effect, it's kind of an Omni Negate, is fairly powerful. It can negate any effect on the field, so any card effect that's activating in hand or grave won't be able to be hit, but this can still hit spell and trap cards like a normal spell or a trap as it's resolving on the field. So this card, and of course other, you know, kinds of cards as well, but this card can definitely hit a wide enough range of cards that I would pretty much consider it an Omni Negate, and it's once per turn with like no other condition attached as well, so very, very powerful in that regard too. And then of course we've got good old Borreload Savage Dragon here, also another very powerful Omni Negate type effect that you like to end on when possible. As far as like actually ending the game, we typically I don't know about typically, but one of the main ways we can do that is actually with Access Code Talker. Note that we are playing Crystron Halki Fibrax in this deck, but we're not going for any kind of like a Halk Auroradon combo. You could, in theory, include that if you wanted to, but at that point, you know, with the Rose Dragon engine, you might as well always just go into Adventure Tenyi at that point, I think. But mainly what we're trying to do with Halki Fibrax is actually just climb up into Access Code Talker, or if it's turn 1, we could potentially go into an Appaloosa as well. I've not actually made an Appaloosa. There have been games, I think maybe one of the games we're going to see, I don't remember, is from before I added Appaloosa, and it was a scenario where Appaloosa would have been good, so then I decided to include Appaloosa in further testing, but haven't made her just yet. But there are scenarios where she can be good to make, but again, mostly Halk is going to be used to go into Access Code Talker for lethal with the Red Rose cards here. There's not necessarily any need to go all in on 3 Red Rose Dragon here. You could definitely play like 2 or even 1, and that would still be totally fine, because again, Halk isn't one of our like main plays necessarily. Our main first turn plays are often going to consist of going into Striker Dragon, using the Boot Sector launch, ideally getting a Rokket Tracer out at some point. Like basically just getting this card on the field is one of your main priorities for making plays in general. Ideally, from Striker Dragon, you can climb up to Romulus if you don't already have Dragon Ravine in hand to get that, which can set up further plays. Another great extender for turn 1 is Chaos Ruler, being able to excavate the top 5, and not only adding the card to your hand, but also putting cards in the graveyard can often be a very, very good way to generate more plays as well. And then from there, you know, again, just trying to end on, you know, as many of the Omni Negates as possible. Usually this deck can not do like a whole lot, like compared to something like Adventure Tenyi, which is spitting out multiple negates very consistently, but again, the power of having like Heavenly Sphere plus Hot Red is still a very, very good turn 1 board, of course in combination with other disruption and then extensive options in your hand. And then we are also playing the Adventure engine, so you know, it's not uncommon to have a Wandering Gryphon Rider then on top of that as well. Let's see, so yeah, like I mentioned, we're playing the Red Rose engine to go into Halk, but again, to go into Access Code rather than Auroradon. Again, can't overstate the importance of having Rokket Tracer out. Being able to pop, usually you can just pop like a, or I've been anyway, I've just been popping like a field spell I've already used, or maybe a card effect as it's resolving, because it is a quick effect. So if you're playing like a normal or quick play spell card, or just a card that's resolving, you can use the Rokket Tracer's quick effect to destroy it without negating it, and then get your summon. Just to be mindful that you can only summon dark monsters from the extra deck during the turn that you use this, so you won't be able to Halk, Heavenly Sphere, or Romulus. Those are the big ones if you do use the Rokket Tracer effect. Let's see, yeah, I'm just glancing over the build here, just trying to figure out if there's anything else that needs particularly being mentioned. I feel like the rest is relatively self-explanatory. It's weird. Again, this deck does not have, I say relatively because this deck does not have the most straightforward combo lines, at least that I've experienced, or that I've been able to see in my gameplay. Again, if there are some straightforward combo lines that you would like to share in the comments, definitely please do so, and I would be more than happy to, well, I'm going to practice up with this deck more either way, but I would be more than happy to acknowledge those and show those off in future gameplay videos. But alright, so yep, let's go ahead and break down the list card by card before we move into the gameplay. So we are playing a whopping 45 cards, by the way. I think this is the biggest deck I've played on Master Duel so far. But Dragon Link is just one of those decks, like ever since the Adventure engine came out, you know, it's so good that it's well worth going above. I mean, Dragon Link would often go above 40 before this anyway, but yeah, I'm playing 45, and that's like, I feel like I'm playing the minimum of what you can get away with. There are so many other tech options you could add to this deck. This deck, I think, averages at about 50 cards, so definitely don't feel like, you know, you have to go down to 40 by any means. I don't see a way you could. Again, 45 is the minimum I felt like I could get away with. But anyway, we are playing 1 Effect Veiler, 1 Rokket Synchron, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Red Rose Dragon, 1 Roxrose Dragon, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 1 White Dragon Wyverburster, 1 Black Dragon Collapserpent, 3 Rokket Tracer, 1 Rokket Recharger, 1 Destrudo the Lost Dragon's Fission, I believe, 1 Absorouter Dragon, 1 Wandering Gryphon Rider, 1 Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, or Red Med as I will often refer to it, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 3 Chaos Space, 2 Rite of Aramesir, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 1 Dragon Ravine, 1 Boot Sector Launch, 1 Fateful Adventure, 3 Quick Launch, 2 Call by the Grave, 3 Crossout Designator, 1 Basalt Rose Shoot, and then finally 1 Infinite Impermanence. Down here in the extra deck, we're playing 1 Shooting Riser Dragon, 1 Boreload Savage Dragon, 1 Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Guard Dragon Pisty, 2 Striker Dragon, 1 Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, 1 Crystron Halki Fibrax, 1 Dragoonity Knight Romulus, 1 Triple Burst Dragon, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Appaloosa Bow the Goddess, and then finally 1 Access Code Talker. Okay, so those are all the cards that are featured in the deck here. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some gameplay. So the first game we're going to watch here is going to be against Adventure Zoodiacs, which is a deck I've been seeing quite a bit on the ladder recently, and a deck I'm actually pretty intrigued in trying out as I have all the components for it. So the Adventure engine does seem like a pretty natural fit to the Zoodiac engine there. So opponent's going to take the first turn, but fortunately we open Maxx. We're going to snap that off in response to the Ram. Opponent does not have a response to the C, fortunately, but they are still going to play a Fusion Destiny, which will give us a cycle, basically, for the Maxx. Gives us a Fateful Adventure, which is definitely not a bad draw here. But we do have to be mindful of the DPE, as well as maybe still a possible hand trap, but that's not as likely. I'm going to lead by summoning the Wandering Gryphon Rider, and then activating the Fateful Adventure as well. So the reason that I'm doing it like this is I want to force my opponent's DPE so that I can actually make plays here, which I can definitely do with either the Gryphon Rider or the Fateful Adventure, plus, you know, the Rokket Tracer, or maybe even the Roxrose with the Basalt Rose Shoot. So I don't really care, honestly, ultimately, which of these my opponent blows up, right? But I need them to DPE and blow up one of them first. So I'm going to start with the Gryphon Rider and then activate the Fateful Adventure. That way my opponent knows I have the threat of the Gryphon Rider's Omni Negate up, and that if they don't do something about it now, I'm going to have my Adventure token with the Dracoback and still be able to negate the DPE momentarily anyway. So honestly, I'm hoping they pop the Fateful Adventure here. I feel like the Wandering Gryphon Rider is maybe a little bit more conducive for plays. Then I can summon the... Well, actually, you know, it could really go either way. I mean, that was the thing about this play, right? It could go either way. So they do activate the DPE, and I believe they end up popping, yeah, the Fateful Adventure here. Yep. I'm just going to leave my Gryphon Rider on the board. Yeah, so for this point, I'm just going to summon the Roxrose Dragon. It's going to let me add the Red Rose Dragon. Then I can use the Basalt Rose Shoot to summon out the Red Rose Dragon from my hand. I'm going to use those to make the Crystron Halki Fibrax here. Alright, now using Halk's effect, my opponent concedes. So, I did debate back and forth if I wanted to make Baron de Fleur, but the thing about making Baron there is that because my opponent... Sorry about the desk there if that's caused the mic to shake, but the thing about making Baron there against Zoodiacs in particular is that it's really easy for, you know, of course, you know, I can Baron, destroy the Ram attack directly, but then without activating an effect, it's really easy for my opponent to play another Zoodiac, go into Borbo, go into battle phase, and then go into Zeus. And yes, I can use Baron in response to Zeus, but my opponent can still board wipe by chaining the Zeus again. And that could potentially leave me in a situation where I'm not left with much of a board and I don't really have many plays. So I thought maybe by hedging and going for the Hulk and seeing if they would maybe negate that, and then still, if they do, fine. If they don't, we could potentially still climb into like an access code for more damage, or I don't know that I really had many other plays beyond that, but in either case, I just figured it was the safer bet. And honestly, there was a factor of it that was like, you know, people just tend to concede when you Hulk, and that actually ended up being the case here. So in any case, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. So this next game was against Sword Soul Tenyi, which is a deck I have not seen too much on the ladder lately. I've seen it a couple of times this season since the new stuff has come out. I'm actually still thinking I might ladder with it a little bit. I don't know, I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to ladder with. Because, God, I've played so many different decks this season. It's definitely starting to feel like a jack of all trades, master of none here. But looking at my hand, I really like this hand. The Foolish to set up the Adventure engine. And then, of course, the Quick Launch plus Boot Sector Launch with a Rokket Recharger in hand. Just a very good hand that will offer quite a few options here. Excuse me. So as always, I'm going to summon to get the Fateful Adventure, or rather to get the Dracoback with the Fateful Adventure before I go for the Wandering Gryphon Rider, just so that I don't net lose any card advantages. There's nothing in my hand I particularly want in the graveyard. But now I can use Boot Sector Launch to just get out this Rokket Recharger. And the cool thing here is that I haven't even used my normal summon yet. I don't know that I'll need to this turn, but it's still nice to have the option to later anyway. Opponent's got the Nibiru, but this is why we set up the Gryphon Rider, so that way we can just negate and destroy it. It won't be a factor anymore. Now I'm going to go for the Chaos Ruler. Yeah, I was trying to remember the name here. I'll go for Chaos Ruler here because I'm planning on ending on the hot Red Dragon Archfiend. And the Chaos Ruler will also offer quite a bit of options. This is the cool thing about Chaos Ruler is that we can add stuff like Effect Veiler and Nibiru. It doesn't even have to be like an extended play. You can add certain... I've actually kind of thought about bumping up to 2 Veiler, like for this specific interaction here. You can see that also set up a Destrudo the Lost Dragon's Fission in the graveyard, which I thought about potentially using with the Adventure token to maybe get out rather a Shooting Riser Dragon here, but I didn't see any particular interaction. And again, this is another case where maybe there's just something that I'm missing. If that's the case, definitely don't be afraid to let me know in the comments, but I couldn't think of a particular interaction that I would want over having an Adventure token with a Dracoback, so I don't believe, if I recall correctly, I actually ended up summoning the Fission here. Here I am going to use the Rokket Synchron I got out with the Chaos Ruler in order to make the hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss here. The cool thing about making the Abyss here with the Chaos Ruler is that I actually still threaten lethal with just the stuff I've used already next turn, because Chaos Ruler has the ability to bring itself back from the graveyard by banishing a Light and Dark from graveyard. Now, I don't actually have a Light in graveyard right now, but I do, of course, have this Effect Veiler in my hand, so it's not too out of the realm of the possibility for me to get one. On top of that, even if I don't end up using Effect Veiler's effect, I can still just use Fateful Adventure to pinch it during my next turn, and then I can just get the Chaos Ruler out anyway. So, given that my opponent only has 4 cards because they Nibiru'd, and I'll have 2 total negates, you can only use the hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss effect once per turn, but I can negate 1 card on my opponent's turn, and then one of their responses during my turn. So I'll be able to stop, ideally 2 of their next 5 cards here. So that's what makes the hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss a sometimes deceptively powerful response here. But yep, I'll Veiler the Sword Soul of Moye. Of course, we do not need that resolving. Opponent does have the Cross-Out Designator in order to actually hit the Veiler, but I'm just going to negate the Cross-Out Designator with the Abyss. I could have just negated the Moye as well, but I also kind of wanted to demonstrate that yes, you can negate face-up cards as they're resolving, which I think most people know, but it's not necessarily an obvious interaction just by looking at it. So I know the opponent's got a Sword Soul Blackout face down, obviously because they revealed it with Moye, but I'm not concerned because I can just use the Archfiend Abyss here once again. And indeed, I will do so to negate the Blackout and resolve the Dracoback, bouncing the Moye, and then yeah, opponent knows that I can just use my Chaos Ruler effect to bring it back now that the Veiler is in the graveyard, and then that's 8,000 damage right there. So easy game. That is how an ideal Dragon Linked game I think would look. Again, maybe I could have had better plays having the Destrudo in the graveyard. If I could have, definitely feel free to let me know, but that seemed like a perfectly reasonable line to me. Okay, let's go and go into the next game. Okay, so this next game is going to be against Adventure Tenyi. This build was utilizing some rather unique card choices that I don't think we saw most of them, such as the, what is it, the Lord of Something Thunder, with level 7 monster that you can summon from your hand by paying 3,000. So opponent takes the first turn here. We open the Ash, but we don't even need to use that as I just set a monster into back row and pass. I'm going to get the Gryphon Rider out during the end phase just so my opponent can't use one of those back rows to respond to it. I'll then use the Rite of Aramesir. Opponent's got the Maxx, but I do fortunately have both Ash and Call By. Now here's the thing, I do ultimately decide to use Call By here, which may have been a bit of a mistake, but the thing I was thinking about was keeping the Ash in hand to have the option to potentially go for Baron if I needed to. As I was, looking at the rest of my hand here, and I'm thinking, well, with just the Rokket Recharger, like, yeah, that can get me a Striker Dragon, but I'm not seeing, like, too many plays that I would use that in. I'm probably just going to either go for just the Adventure line or maybe sink into Baron. So in the interest of leaving my options open, I decided to Call By rather than Ash. But my opponent is going to end up flipping a Cross-Out Designator, which is one thing I should have considered before slamming down the Call By, was that my opponent could potentially respond with a Designator. Now I'm not able to respond to Ash, with Ash rather, because the Ash has to respond directly to the Maxx. And with that factored in mind, it was definitely probably better to play the Ash first and then the Call By later. It's fine if you just end on Adventure Engine cards. Like, we've seen this in games plenty of times, right? Where we only end on the Adventure Engine stuff, and that's totally fine. Now, here I make what could potentially be another slight misplay. My thinking here was that I wanted to have the option to have not only the Boot Sector launch, but the Rokket Recharger in my hand for next turn. I'm going to end up after the battle phase using Striker Dragon's effect on itself to return the dragon to my hand. I just wanted to ensure that I had follow-up plays for the next turn, and I thought at the time that was worth giving my opponent a draw from Maxx. Looking back, I don't know that that's actually necessarily the case, but it was the play I decided to make in the moment. It also does offer a slight little, extra 1,000 damage, but that wasn't really as much of a factor, so much as making sure that I had basically I was just trying to get a free Boot Sector launch here for potential plays next turn, so. Alright, so the opponent decides to follow up by normal summoning. Actually, this is a pretty cool line that my opponent does here. They're to summon O-Lion to go into Almirage, right? Then they use O-Lion's effect, obviously getting the token now. And I'm, kind of thinking, like, okay, where's this going? And then they use this effect of O-Lion that I never even, honestly, to be totally honest with you, really even knew was here, which is to banish it from grave, to normal summon a Mecha Phantom Beast from hand, and then they summon the extra O-Lion. So one reason I actually wanted to include this game was that was a really cool line my opponent did, which I mean is obvious if you just read the card, but I don't know, I feel like a lot of people like me maybe wouldn't necessarily think about that effect in the moment. I could certainly see myself in a game misplaying in that regard. So from there, the opponent is able to go into the Hulk. I will, of course, Ash the Hulk's effect, although looking back, I should have waited for the Auroradon's effect to use the Ash, because they have a token on the field. I know they can already go into Auroradon. I was just thinking, like, oh, I can just use the Gryphon Rider on the Auroradon, but that was probably another, not probably, I think that was just another misplay on my part, was to, I should have let the Auroradon even get the tokens out here, right? And then, when the Auroradon used the effect, then use the Ash. Of course, hindsight's 2020, knowing they have the Imperm here, but even not knowing that they have an Imperm, I do still think it was just a little bit of a waste to throw away 2 negates when I could have just used 1. Because no matter what the opponent uses the effect for, you can Ash that third effect, because part of the effect includes the ability to summon a monster from the deck. Now here, because they've used their O-Lions, they don't have anything to bring out from the deck, so they can only use the Destroy effect here. Alright, so I used the Water Enchantress to go for a Rite of Aramesir here. Unfortunately, my Dracoback and Gryphon are both gone, so not going to be able to do much with those. And the opponent's got an Ash for the Chaos Space. That is definitely going to hurt a fair bit here. I can still use Boot Sector Launch to bring back the Rokket Recharger here. And in that regard, I could still go for a Striker Dragon. I'll run over the opponent's tokens just to make sure that they don't have any plays, but at this point I am hoping for a top deck here. Now, that said, this deck actually does have a decent amount of top decks that can, by themselves, get you out of a bad spot. I'm namely talking about Rokket Tracer. peeling Rokket Tracer off the top of the deck would just solidify the game for me in this case. Opponent still doesn't have any truly substantial plays here. They're just popping my cards with the random kind of monsters they have in hand. So yeah, definitely hoping to peel a Rokket Tracer off the top here. We do get a quick launch for a Rokket Tracer, so I slam it down excitedly. But one of my opponent's last 2 cards is Ash. Oh my god, so annoying, so annoying. That was the other thing too, is like it's not even, I had more than 3 top decks, the Rokket Tracers. I also had the quick launches as well, but no, in this case the opponent did have the Ash Blossom for the Rockets, or the quick launch rather. I'll use the Water Enchantress to add back a Bright, because why not? And mostly just trying to stay alive at this point. Although at this point, yeah, they have popped my Rite of Aramesir, so... oh, and then, yeah, they were going for the Adventure line, right, because they actually hadn't used any of it yet. I did check their graveyard. I should have pointed that out before I just went to the concede there, but... Yes, unfortunately, the opponent did not use any of their Adventure line, so from the Water Enchantress there, they were then able to go into the full line and get the Wandering Gryphon Rider out. And at that point, I think they might have been just a little bit short of lethal, but they still would have had an Omni Negate, and there's no one card against an Omni Negate that I think I could have top decked for lethal, so ultimately just conceded at that point. But definitely still a good game regardless, and, you know, I'm not afraid to show off games where I misplay a little bit, because it's a part of the learning curve of just learning the deck, right? And I'm even open to showing games like this more, because there are definitely potential misplays that I probably missed that you guys can help me with in the comments there. But in any case, let's go ahead and go to the next game. So this duel is going to be against Virtual World. I actually don't remember looking at it if it was playing an Adventure Engine or not. I don't think it was, actually, but it could have been. I did just gloss over it. That's kind of a bad habit sometimes when I'm confirming the opponent's deck before I show off one of these replays. I'm just like, I click it, look for one card, and I'm like, it's that archetype. And okay, so they are playing the Adventure Engine. Okay, so the Water Enchantress, I've got the Ash though, so that's a pretty easy negate for me there. Looking at my hand, it looks really, really good. I've got a Water Enchantress of my own. I definitely don't even mind opening Fateful Adventure alongside it necessarily with a hand like this. And then with the, well, now Roxrose Dragons, that wasn't necessarily a great draw, but we definitely still have the option to go for quite a few different plays here. I'll use a Fateful Adventure, just start by adding the Gryphon Rider, pitching the Enchantress for the right. That way you can use Rite of Aramesir, and the opponent actually chains Maxx here, which it works out because then I can just chain the Wandering Gryphon Rider. What I was going to say was you can activate Rite, and then if your opponent lets that resolve, chain the Gryphon Rider, and then that way you can just have the setup, you know, ready right from the get-go. There's no, like, gap, but ended up working out here as well, because again, we're just going to give them one fewer draw off Maxx. I do decide that going for Baron is worth it here in order to go for a little bit more damage. I mean, we could just, you know, bounce the card anyway, but, oh yeah, I was trying to see if I could push for lethal here, that's right. Yeah, so we're going to use the Basalt Rose Shoot after adding the Roxrose Dragon. Yeah, because at this point I'm just like, let's just go for lethal. I'm not even going to worry about my opponent's Maxx draws. I've definitely been more cautious about that in the past, but in recent weeks I've just been a lot more, I guess, liberal with my Maxx, a lot more open to just... Oh, that's right, we're going to go for an access code OTK here. Yep, this is where we use Help to go for the access code line as I go for another Unicorn. And we still have the Baron Omni Negate up, so even if my opponent tops in a Nibiru, that's totally fine. And then from there, we're able to go into the 5300 access code Talker. And opponent doesn't end up having any responses before I go to battle phase, so we're able to secure lethal. So yes, I wanted to show that game specifically so that I could show what an OTK line using Hulk to go into access code Talker looks like. So yes, very, very optimal. Another game where that's like a... You know, this is an optimal turn 2 outcome, whereas the game with Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss was more of like an optimal turn 1 outcome. Again, I think ideally, I mean, this one I'm pretty sure because I did, you know, obviously OTK, but in any case, I do have one more game to show. Let's go straight into it. Okay, last duel here we're going to take a look at, and in continuing bad habits with confirming the opponent's deck, I forgot to do it this time, so it's a short duel anyway, though, so it's not probably not going to be too relevant what they're playing. Looks like we're taking the first turn here, and we opened a fairly solid hand with the Dragon Ravine here and the Rokket Synchron. yeah, I'm going to pitch the Roxrose Dragon and send the Absorouter, which is going to let us add the Rokket Tracer, and then we can summon the Rokket Synchron to go for a big play here as well, potentially. I'm going to use the... I did actually debate going into Striker Dragon here, but ultimately decided to start with the Chaos Ruler instead, because I figured I can just go use the Wyverburster to go for Striker Dragon if I need to anyway. And we actually did end up just straight up milling 5, which is a little bit unlucky, but we did still mill a Water Enchantress. That's why I said in the deck profile that the mills are like just as good as the actual ad themselves, so... Can't use the Rite of Aramesir here because we did use the effect of a normal summoned monster, but no big deal. Like I said, we're just going to use the Wyverburster to go for the Striker Dragon. That'll allow us to add the Collapserpent, and then of course the Boot Sector launch as well. Boot Sector launch is going to let us get out the Rokket Tracer here. And then we'll use Collapserpent, of course, as well. Popping that to go for the Rokket Recharger. So here I'm going to use the Striker Dragon in order to get the Rokket Synchron back to my hand. And funnily enough, I used Recharger's effect, but then realized I didn't have a better target than Recharger, so I just brought it back anyway. But one of the main reasons I did that was to go for Boreload. Boreload for Striker Dragon isn't ideal. It's not much of an attack boost, and it's only 1 Omni Negate, but I figure 1 Omni Negate is still better than nothing here. We've also got the Ash Blossom as well, as the fact that we wield the Rokket Synchron back to our hand for plays next turn. And then, of course, having the... just having Rokket Synchron plus Rite of Aramesir for plays next turn is definitely nice to have. And sure enough, even that 1 Omni Negate on Boreload seems to be enough combined with the Ash on the Duality to stop our opponent here. So even if you have to go for like a seemingly suboptimal Boreload like this, like only getting 1 counter and a very minor attack boost, that's totally still fine. Like as we saw in this game here, that was 100% fine. So even if that wasn't an ideal board, and again, if I could have played that better, definitely let me know. This is one of those decks where you can just kind of, even playing suboptimally, I guess you just kind of get away with just cheesing out wins there. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to the outro. All right, everybody, thank you so very much for watching this video, especially all the way to the very end. I greatly appreciate that, not only personally, but just as a way of supporting the channel. Thank you very much. I am also appreciative and thankful to those who are commenting and subscribing. As I've said multiple times in this video, I am definitely looking to any experienced Dragon Link players for advice in regards to deck building and gameplay. As always, I do get a lot of my best information directly from you guys, which is a source that I would... yeah, I couldn't ask for a better source, honestly. You guys are great in the comments. I have a wonderful comment section. I love bragging about it because you guys are so just awesome. And yeah, subscribing is a great way to stay informed of when my videos drop, which does happen every single day. So if you subscribe, you do get a daily Master Duel video out of me. But that's about all I got for this one. So without further ado, this is XLex signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.